what's happening, everyone? Welcome to Normal America's show. This is going to be my new time slot, 8 a.m. every day, or every weekday, I should say. Weekends, usually for me. So thanks so much for being here. Thank you, Ramon, first. I would say, Ramon, you were first, probably more than anyone else in getting on the chat. So thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it. Great day. I have a good show lined up. A lot of news was breaking last night. So on this show, I'm going to cover two things. The Tony Bobulinski interview on Tucker last night, which basically puts a nail in the coffin of not just Biden and the corruption surrounding him, but also the Obama administration, the Democrats, the media, and the FBI that have covered up and that are still trying to bury this story, despite the fact that we see actual evidence. Not only do we have a whistleblower that's came out that's given his name, that's receiving threats, but this whistleblower, we can prove, actively had connections to the Bidens in their business dealings, and he's provided actual evidence that backs up all of the claims that he's making. Yet still we see that the media is trying to bury this story. So that's going to be one of the things we talk about, but I'm probably going to start with the riots that we see occurring, which the Democrats can't be happy about. Not that they don't like riots. They do. They thought the riots were a great thing earlier in the year. But the Democrats won't be happy because their internal polling showed them a while ago that these riots were actually helping people make the decision to vote for Republicans and to vote for Trump in particular, because they didn't want to vote for a party of people that are encouraging these riots. So once that internal polling showed that it was bad for them for the election, they all of a sudden switched at the flip of a hat and said, "Oh, now we're against riots." But it's all white supremacists. It's the Proud Boys. It's the Proud Boys. They're doing it, but we're against them. We're against them. Remember, as we watched these riots occur last night, we had New York City, Philadelphia, D.C., Los Angeles. As you watch these riots occur, remember, Kamala Harris tried to bail out rioters. That was what she was up to. That's what Joe Biden's staffers were doing, pushing bail funds to bail out the people that you see rioting. That's what they were up to. So remember that. Those are the things. And I want to focus on Pennsylvania in particular and what we saw going on with them. So we'll give it a couple minutes to see if anyone joins. Yesterday I had around 40 people at this time slot. So far, it's just you, Ramon. So we'll wait and see if anyone joins here for a minute. If not, we'll get on with the show. It don't matter to me if there's only one or two people watching. Hey, thanks, Ramon. Thanks for the donation. He says, I wonder if Pisco will still debate Friday after the Bobulinski Tucker interview. Yeah, he will. And I'll tell you why. Because the take that he will offer and that you'll see offered from the left is, well, there's no proof of any of this. And even if it's true, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. He'll be in a difficult position because if you remember, Pisco in our Russia interference debate went on and on about how any foreign interference into our election must be taken seriously. The founding fathers found it very serious. So it'll be funny to watch the caliber of him as a person when we're like, okay, what about this situation with China? What about Bobulinski, who says he was, mortified at what he saw as foreign interference into our system and that Joe Biden's compromised? Should that be investigated? It'll be fun to watch him change his stance. Oh, no, this time it's different because... So that'll be what the debate's about. It'll just be more hypocrisy. Yeah, right. That's exactly what he said last time. So, we'll see what happens. Let me just check something real quick here. Maybe 8 o'clock's too early for people, huh? That's all right. This is the time I'm doing it, So let's first talk about the rioting and what's going on. So the 4 riots that I know of last night were, like I said, New York City, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia. What's up, 223? Philadelphia and L.A. L.A. was, I believe, I didn't see a lot of footage of it. I saw them looting a tractor trailer that was stuck. From what I understand, that was largely about the Dodgers and the World Series. What's up, Adrian? Thanks for being here, man. So we got the Dodgers win the World Series. That's reasons to riot. New York City was rioting in solidarity with Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, it was because a black man charged police officers with a knife for over 40 seconds until they shot him. And then in D.C., apparently that riot is about a black man was fleeing from police on a moped and ran into a parked car and died. And that's why they're rioting. So You can see that the pretense, remember, as I said in the show yesterday, the original pretense for this was when police engage in some sort of heinous action against a person of color, and therefore they must protest and riot because of that. That's out the window. We realize that, right? Now, if they're going to riot if a person of color decides to attempt to kill police and they fire back in defense, like we saw in Philadelphia. But it's even worse than that. The police don't even have to fire their guns. They could just be trying to pull someone over in a traffic stop, and if that person flees and smashes into a parked car and dies, that's reason to riot. Heck, it's worse than that, though. We saw in Chicago there a couple months ago. A man was on foot running from police, decided to pull out a gun, kill himself, and that was reason to riot in Chicago. That's the sort of, that you can see the nonsense that's going on from these people. This is just excuses to riot. That's what it is. And again, I've gone through the different branches. Yes, you have Antifa, that they're slightly different ideological from Black Lives Matter. The people running that have a political axe to grind. They're engaged in political or domestic terrorism. They're trying to use violence and intimidation to achieve political goals. The same with Black Lives Matter, the people running it. But there are an awful lot of people that just want an excuse to riot and loot because they think it's fun. Now, look, yesterday you heard me saying I'm not for saying, oh, the police should actively fire on all these rioters. That's not what I'm saying. There is a time for that. If the rioters are attempting to burn people alive, as we've seen in the past, then yes, that's something that should be done. If the rioters are using lethal force, then yes, that should be reciprocated to them. But in most situations, the way to deal with this is these people, you start giving them, every single one you arrest, 10, 20 years in prison, period. How are we going to go on as a society? This is the new norm. So anytime a person of color is killed in any situation involving the police, even if it's because they were fleeing and they killed themselves in a car wreck, even if it's because they were fleeing on foot and they decide to kill themselves, then we have a riot. That's what's going to happen. We know that if Trump wins, there'll be riots after that as well. The left is the party of the riot. They think that there's no problem with it. They see it as reparations. They see it as a peaceful protest. They see it as legitimate because Orange Man bad and Republicans are all racist Nazis. Therefore, it's okay. It's okay to riot. Notice, though, they're never rioting in their communities. And by that, I mean sort of the leftist liberals that tell you that they're more moral than you. Notice that. I have this happen where I live in Clarion County. I had a bunch of people tell me that I was horrible for being against, just like I was telling you on the show yesterday. So I'm against white people going into inner city black neighborhoods and helping burn it down. Because I'm against that, that makes me a racist. The people that are for whites going into inner cities and burning down black communities, they're the anti-racist, allegedly. Mm-hmm. But I had this happen in Clarion County where people said this. I was like, look, post your address. Leave them burn down your house. If you really want to, you have white privilege, right? Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I have white privilege. Okay. Well, how about you offer up your neighborhood to be burned down instead of these inner city black neighborhoods? Seems fair, right? Leave them come beat your wife with a 2x4 like we saw in Rochester. Leave that happen. Leave them come loot and steal all of your stuff. Leave them try to burn down your house while you're in it. That's what you're recommending for these inner city neighborhoods. So perhaps if you're a moral, virtuous person, as you're suggesting, post your address online. Say, please come burn down my home. Come vandalize it. Come loot it. Come attack my family. That's what you wish upon these inner city neighborhoods. They don't have the nerve for that, though. All of a sudden, their moral superiority goes out the window. Oh, no, not me. Not my home. I don't want that. Of course. Of course that's the case. So we have all these riots. Again, I can't stress this enough. There's several things to talk about. Remember, even though it's never talked about, I get that because the left controls the narrative. Never forget that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden staffers pushed a bail fund to get people like these rioters out of jail. They did. In Minneapolis, it resulted in people that were alleged rapists getting out, people that had fired at the police getting out. That's who they are. They supported these riots. Remember, Christopher Wray's out there telling you, I don't see a problem with this. Black Lives Matter, no problem. Antifa, no problem. It's those Proud Boys. It's those white supremacists. Is that who it was in Philly last night? That's what we have to believe? And when I debate people and when you debate people, or not necessarily debate, but have discussions that are on the left, they're going to tell you, Chris Wray said that didn't happen last night. What you saw wasn't real. Ask Chris Wray, he's the head of the FBI. The FBI says that's not a problem. This is white supremacists. You remember all the cities the white supremacists burnt down? Remember? Just this past year, you remember that happened? What's up, Killingsworth? Good morning, Whoopsie. Bernie, how's it going? I sound like I have a cold. Probably just because I just woke up. I feel good. Bernie says, all these people remind me of a bunch of 2-year-olds that can't have their own way. If a black life matters, why do they burn down black poor people's neighborhoods? A lot of these people aren't even black. Exactly. And that's the point I was making. Can't believe no arrests have been made yet. Well, that's what happens. And again, like, yes, there is corruption in the establishment. Yes, I understand the establishment and the corruption can swing across both parties. There are your John McCain's, your Jeff Flakes, your Mitt Romney's that are towing the line with your Chuck Schumer's, your Nancy Pelosi's, your Joe Biden's, of course. But let's not kid ourselves. The Democratic Party is the face of the establishment and of that corruption. Good morning, Jennifer. And when you have people, I say this all the time, the conservatives were concerned about winning elections for the past 30 years, which is something that's important, don't get me wrong. But the establishment and the radical left realized that there was something even better than that. Andrew Breitbart said this all the time. Politics is downstream of culture. So while we were focused on winning elections, they were focused on dominating all of our cultural institutions. So for over 30 years, they've dominated academia and made it more ridiculous, extreme left, and also pro-establishment. Because the irony is, as I show all the time, like with Black Lives Matter, for example, this is an extreme left movement, but it's also a corporatist movement. It's sponsored by Starbucks and Nikes, sponsored by Jeff Bezos and Amazon. And these people think they're revolutionaries, sponsored by the wealthy people that they claim are racist institutions. It's surreal. But they indoctrinated academia for 30 years and more, getting more and more radical. And now those people have made their way into society, into jobs, into positions of leadership. And as such, it's no surprise that there's no arrest. Chris Wray, Rod Rosenstein, James Comey, you think they're going to actively go after corruption that would harm the Democratic Party? Of course not. You think they're going to stop riots and things like that? Of course not. Governor Tom Wolf in Pennsylvania, you think that he just yesterday, and I'm going to play you a video that I did about Tom Wolf from months ago, but just yesterday, Wolf was asked in an interview about this, about the rioting in Philly the night before, and he said, I feel bad for the victim of the police shooting and for their family, and you always feel bad for that, and I hope that it doesn't escalate beyond the peaceful protest. Peaceful protest? I watched someone in a truck run over police officers the night before. And that's where Tom Wolf was. Tom Wolf, who famously said in a press conference back in March or April, I believe it was March, that there are two Pennsylvanias, one for white people and one for people of color and black people. Does that sound like a leader that's going to say things to stop this riot? You think he's going to stop the rioting? He's beholden to them. Yeah, Wolf should be impeached, but he won't be. For those of you who don't know, Tom Wolf cannot run for re-election. His term will be up. So 2022, I believe, is the next gubernatorial election. But Wolf's crooked. He certainly is. So I want to play you, this actually happens to be the video that I've done that has more views than any other one that I've done on YouTube. But it was a video I was proud of. And this is Tom Wolf way back in March, I believe, explaining to or it's proof of him explaining why it was okay for him to issue these lockdown orders to everyone else. Oh, this was June, I guess. Tom Wolf, explaining why you're a horrible person. Now, I want you to listen to this video. It's going to go through what Tom Wolf said. Tom Wolf looked at people that were worried that they were losing their jobs or were unable to see their loved ones because of his dictatorial lockdown orders. Now, he didn't say, oh, well, I understand this is a sacrifice Pennsylvanians need to make, and I understand. He called people cowards. You were a coward if you challenged his order. And then he went out and broke his own orders to march with Black Lives Matter. Is it any wonder then that we see these riots happening in Philly? When he marched with these domestic terrorists? When he's inflamed racial tensions by saying there's two Pennsylvanias? So let's play the video. It's like 7 minutes long, but I think it's a good one. Hopefully you'll like it.
On May 11th, Governor Wolf came out and released a statement on county commissioners that were threatening to violate his lockdown orders and open up. The reason they were doing this is because they were concerned their constituents were losing their livelihoods, not being able to go to work. Wolf was not impressed with this and thought that there would be consequences for people breaking his law and that it would lead to the virus spreading and putting everyone's life in jeopardy. Here's from his statement. In his latest press briefing, Governor Tom Wolf responded to the politicians planning to defy the stay-at-home order. He called the move a cowardly act and reminded politicians they're putting lives at risk. In recent days, politicians in various counties sent letters notifying them their plans to move from red phase to yellow on May 15th. According to the governor, counties that do not follow the stay-at-home order will not get funding because they're putting all of us at risk and operating illegally. He said non-compliant counties will not qualify for federal discretionary funds. Quote, to these politicians who decide to cave in to this coronavirus, they need to realize the consequences of their cowardly act. The funding we'll have put aside to help fighting this crisis will go to the folks who are doing their part. And that includes our CARES Act funding that will be used to support counties that are following orders to prevent the spread. Wolf told business owners that these politicians are putting their businesses at risk of losing their health department certificate, liquor license, and certificate of occupancies. Now, think of what he's saying there. If you live in a county and your county says, okay, go ahead and open up, and Tom Wolf disagrees and says that violates his order, he'll take your license to operate. He'll take your health certificate. He called you a coward. He said that if you break the law, there'll be consequences. He had no time for this. He said that it would lead to deaths. Now, fast forward to Monday. There was supposed to be a press conference with Tom Wolf. He had put out a statement over the weekend that was completely opposite when it came to the protests that were occurring in Pennsylvania about the death of George Floyd. Now, despite these facts that these protests had riots that occurred in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, Tom Wolf still played lip service to him and talked about the need to fight systemic racism and why these protests were important. My friend Todd Bartley was able to attend the press conference and Wednesday was going to be able to ask Secretary Levine of the Department of Health why Tom Wolf called people cowards who wanted to open their businesses and provide for their family, but he celebrated protesters, some of which ended up leading to riots in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia that wanted to protest about a cop killing someone states over. 15 minutes before he went in to ask this question, he found out that in Dauphin County, where Harrisburg is located, it's still under code yellow, which he'd known that, which means you can't have large gatherings. 15 minutes before he got to ask the question, he heard that Tom Wolf was personally in Dauphin County at a protest that had over 200 people. In other words, Tom Wolf was breaking his own law. And so he decided to ask Secretary Levine what was going on. Here's the question and her response.
Secretary, Dauphin County just moved to yellow on May 29th, which means no large gatherings. And apparently there's a march going on that has more than 200 people in it today in Dauphin County. Can you clarify the administration's position on May 11th? Business owners were called cowards for wanting to reopen their businesses, and today the governor is actually marching in that. Is that not in violation of your order and his order for large gatherings?
Well, so we have, then the governor has always said that people have the right to protest and to demonstrate and the right of free speech. And so overall, we want large gatherings such as maybe a party or some type of concert or something to be under 250 people. But we are not restricting people's right to protest. There are also obviously significant social issues, that are present, that people feel that they need to have a voice, and so the governor is always supportive of that and is participating in that. April, there is a question back there.
Now, notice she didn't offer up for a follow-up because my friend Todd would have said, that's outrageous. You said that people that violated the law would face consequences, would not get federal funding or money, and they would lose their job. Why doesn't that apply to Tom Wolf? It was one thing for him to pay lip service to these protesters that were breaking the law, but he himself breaking the law is an outrage. This is indicative of what we've seen from leaders all across this country. They don't feel the rules apply to them. They think they can threaten you. Remember, it wasn't as if he said, I understand people that want to open their business, but, unfortunately, we think it'll cause the virus to spread and kill people. He called you a coward. He threatened you. If you want to feed your family, you are a coward. If you want to protest a cop that died states over, then you're a noble hero. Why is it that COVID can't spread all of a sudden in these crowds? Are they lying when they said that we need to shut down? Because otherwise the virus would spread and kill people? Or are they lying when they say that the protest won't spread the virus? I think it's the former. I think this is evidence that they didn't care about these deaths, as evidence of the fact that Tom Wolf's policy was to put nursing home patients with COVID back in the nursing home, therefore encouraging the spread and leading to mass deaths there. And now we see evidence that he doesn't even believe his own lies. He'll threaten you if you want to provide for your family, but if he wants to go out and get a photo op to be with these protesters, he thinks that's highly appropriate. Call your state representative. Demand that we lift these lockdowns now. If they're good enough to not be enforced for Tom Wolf, then your family's just as important. We're sick and tired of leaders, people like Tom Wolf, that stand on a moral high ground and threaten us and claim that they know what they're talking about, then violating the very same things and laws that they pass that they demand we enforce. They don't care about your family and livelihood. All they care about is increasing their power. And that's what the lockdown was about the entire time.
Man, I look good with the long beard, huh? Longer. No, but that's exactly right. And the reason I bring this up again is, remember, we're still seeing the ramifications of Tom Wolf endorsing Black Lives Matter. More riots. He refuses to condemn them. Again, we still have restaurants. Just in my little town, it was just announced 2 weeks ago that the local bar that I used to frequent quite often when I was in college closed down for good. I know bar and restaurant owners that are struggling. They might not make it. They're allowed to operate at like 20% capacity. And yet, all of the people that suggest that, because of COVID, blah, 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 where are they last night with what's going on in Philly? Is that a super spreader event? Oh, we're just not going to talk about it. Once more, in Pennsylvania and many other states in this great country, if you try to open your business, you are a criminal who will be arrested. If you want to loot and burn down a business, you're a hero protesting racial injustice. It is outrageous. If the American people don't wake up to this and start refusing to comply with their rights being taken away in such a hypocritical manner, we will lose our country. I look like a white ice cube. Yeah, and then I saw someone say this in the chat. Yeah, it's absolutely true. Secretary Levine there that you saw, as she was telling Pennsylvanians, we're going to do everything we can. Everyone will be tested in nursing homes. Nursing homes are going to be totally safe. While she was doing that, they were signing orders to put COVID patients in nursing homes, and she took her mother out of a nursing home because she knew that they were going to be hellholes where there were going to be thousands of deaths thanks to her orders. Now we see these riots. So COVID doesn't matter anymore. Oh, wait, but it will tomorrow. When Trump does a rally today, then, oh my God, COVID, super spreader. Oh, but a bunch of people want to burn down Philadelphia. No problem. No problem at all. That's good. That's a good thing. What violence? The Proud Boys. It must have been the Proud Boys engaged in violence, right? I agree, Rico, man. You can't give up your rights. No one can take them from you. The government can only violate your rights. That is a crime in this country. It should be. I know I look better with the short hair. So where's Tom Wolf? Again, can you be surprised when Tom Wolf said this? I wish I had the audio in front of me. He was asked, what would you say about the riots and the protests? And he said, I would say there are two Pennsylvanias, one for white people and one for people of color. The riots aren't a glitch in the Democratic platform. The riots are the predictable outcome. When you tell people that police are hunting them for sport because they're racist, when you tell them that they don't have a chance because this entire country is systemically racist, when you say there are two Pennsylvanians, one for white people and one for black people, what do you think's going to happen? Of course there are going to be riots. And then when those riots occur and you either say, yes, that's a good thing they're occurring, or you pretend they're not occurring, and no one faces any criminal prosecution for the heinous actions taken during the riots, do you think they're just going to end on their own? Of course not. If you're out there and you're still not sure who you're going to vote for, I'm not even making a case here to vote for Donald Trump. I'm not even making a case to vote for the Republicans. But if you vote Democrat, this is what you get. Don't be shocked when it happens to you. This is predictably what will happen. If you put a bunch of people in that say that they want America to be miserable, they want to destroy the middle class. The lockdown's about that. Encouraging these riots and bailing out rioters and making sure that George Soros-funded prosecutors allow these people to get out scot-free. That's what it's about. It'll come to the suburbs as well. It will. Kenosha wasn't a big city. Oh, I know, Whoopsie. Whoopsie says they make fun of rural PA and call it Pennsyltucky. I've lived here my whole life. I love rural Pennsylvania. If you saw the original video I did in my YouTube channel, I talk about the reason that I started my channel, and that I had a couple reasons. But the big reason was that I felt like the people in this area of the world don't have a voice. They don't have any power in the institutions. No one in the entertainment industry cares about them. No one in the media cares about them. No one in academia cares about them. No one in Silicon Valley cares about them. The politicians that even we vote from here, many of which almost all of them are Republicans, they seem to go to Washington and no longer care about the people living here. So I wanted to be someone that was, as small as I am, somewhat of a voice for the people in this area. That was my intent. And I wanted to make sure that those people had a chance to come on my show if they wanted and talk. And I don't care about your skin color. I don't care about your profession. I don't care about your wealth. I don't care about your sexual preference. I don't care about your religion. None of that. If you live in this area, I'm talking about you. That's how I legitimately feel. And we're constantly trashed. We're constantly talked down to. Remember Rick Wilson on CNN saying we're 10-toothed rubes that can't read a map, that are trying to stop the brown horde from coming into our country. It's garbage. I'm not saying that the challenges faced in these areas where in rural Pennsylvania, poverty is excruciating and it's getting worse. I'm not saying that it's unique here, that it doesn't happen in other areas. And there are different challenges living everywhere. Certainly, I don't think I could have handled it in the inner city. But it's considered polite and popular to talk about the problems in the inner city. There are a bunch of people that say, you're in the in crowd if you do that. If you want to defend places like rural Pennsylvania or the rural areas of this country, all you do is get maligned and smeared. We had counties in Pennsylvania like Sullivan County, 2 cases of COVID, 0 deaths, was locked down. Why? Because there were cases in Philly. Do you think that would have happened if it was the opposite? Do you think that if there was an outbreak of some sort and there was marginal amount of deaths in rural Pennsylvania, that Philly and Pittsburgh would have been ordered to shut down by Governor Wolf? Not a chance. So, yeah, so all of a sudden, all these riots occurring, COVID disappeared again. It'll be back as soon as Trump has a rally. Then all of a sudden the media will care and Tom Wolf will care. All the Democrats will care. Oh, COVID, COVID, COVID. When they want to riot, though, what COVID? This is peaceful. What? Proud Boys? White supremacists? So, yeah, I agree with you. We need more federalism. We need more state power. But, you know, in my state, that means getting rid of people like Tom Wolf. We'll see. All right. Let's get to the crux of the show here. Tony Bobulinski. On Tucker's show last night, we're going to talk about this interview that is devastating, and hopefully I'll be able to talk about it from angles that you haven't heard others talking about. Now, there's a good chance that'll be the case because other than independent content creators and a handful of people like Tucker Carlson and Molly Hemingway, no one is talking about this. Which in itself is one of the biggest scandals that I've ever seen. Not just the scandal of Joe Biden's corruption, but the cover-up by the Democratic Party, the Obama administration, the Biden family themselves, the FBI, the mainstream media in Silicon Valley, all working in concert to try to bury this obvious evidence of the corruption of Joe Biden. First off, let me say this. I defended Tucker even when it wasn't cool to defend Tucker. Tucker has always been what I would consider the premier mainstream. I don't know if he'd call himself a journalist, though he's doing better journalism with this Bobulinski interview than pretty much any self-proclaimed journalist in the country. But I think Tucker's show is fantastic. Even if you don't agree with him about everything, I think that he's worth watching. He will criticize Trump when he feels it necessary. He criticizes the Republicans. He'll go across issues, across party lines. For example, he's nailed Jim Jordan and others about the need to break up Google. And he's praised people like Elizabeth Warren that talked about breaking up Amazon. So he seems to me to be someone that has some authenticity and credibility. And he's covering stories that oftentimes he himself is then placed in personal jeopardy of losing his job because of the smear campaign that occurs around him. And so I have nothing but good things to say about Tucker. I remember way back in like January when Tucker was talking about how COVID could be serious. I had a bunch of right-wing friends that were like, oh, Tucker, he's terrible, blah, 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 blah. But Tucker's case was very much like mine the entire time, which is we could talk about how COVID will be a real thing. It comes from China. We should focus on how China, again, is harming this country in a litany of ways, and one of them being what they did was lying about COVID. But at the same time, be skeptical of but the lockdowns are the answer. That's where Tucker's been the entire time. Thanks, Janet. Yeah, 8 a.m. is going to be my new time slot, so check me out. Every weekday, 8 a.m. Now, Tucker has on Tony Bobulinski. First, I want to talk about how in this interview, the interview's available, you could watch it. I have Molly Hemingway's tweet thread up where she basically tweeted the entire time during the interview, so we will go through that. But first, I want to talk about my general impressions of what happened and why Tony Bobulinski came forward. The irony is he probably would have never came forward if it wasn't for Adam Schiff. So once more, big brain Adam Schiff, liar in chief, who personally saw evidence that Trump colluded with Putin. Remember? He personally saw evidence of those crimes. Of course, we still can't see it. He lied. He was the one who was in contact with the whistleblower. He lied about that. He was the one most responsible for the impeachment. That was garbage. The guy lies over and over and over again. Russia, 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 Russia. And yet we're still supposed to trust this guy. Well, the big hero of the left, Adam Schiff. If you're a Democrat and you probably just don't care about the Tony Bobulinski interview, you probably don't care. But if you did, and you're like, wow, that's pretty damning, you have only Adam Schiff to thank for this. Because Adam Schiff came out. Let's go through the timeline. So Tony Bobulinski didn't come forward. What happened was this famous story where A laptop was left at a computer repair shop. That owner of that tried to give it to the FBI, which basically did nothing. He saved copies of it. He gave it to Rudy Giuliani's lawyer. That evidence then went to the New York Post, and then the story was written. You could see emails in those stories. Remember, we were told all of those emails were lies. Well, you know who didn't think those emails were fake? The people that were involved in the emails, such as Tony Bobulinski. So he sees that these emails he was sharing are now been released via the New York Post. This is his life story. So he's like, okay, whatever. Adam Schiff comes out, or I believe Bobulinski then was asked if these emails were real, and he said, yeah, they're real. Adam Schiff then comes out and says the computer repair shop owner and people confirming the emails are clearly Russian disinformation. Clearly. And Bobulinski, who served in the Navy, whose family served the country, was furious. Because he's one of those people that it seems like are actually people that care about the important things in life, and he cares about this country, and he cares about his family's reputation. And he wasn't going to be smeared as someone who fought for this country as a Russian asset. And so he called Hunter Biden's lawyer and said, listen, either Adam Schiff retracts that statement insinuating that I'm spreading Russian disinformation, or I'm going public. They didn't retract, and now we have Tony Bobulinski. So this isn't someone that wanted to sell a book. This isn't someone who wanted a president or a candidate impeached, and so they came forward, that had a political axe to grind. In fact, they say in the interview with Tucker, Bobulinski, the few times he's donated to politicians in his life, it's all been Democrats. This is someone that you could even tell when he gives his story about meeting Joe Biden. He talks of him with admiration, saying he understood Joe Biden went through some personal tragedies, and he and Biden exchanged stories about the pride in their family and serving the country. This doesn't seem like someone who hated Joe Biden from the outset. The world's talking about Israel and COVID, which was the previous subject. Look, I criticize Israel. I'm not one of these people that are black and white on Israel. I think that's a mistake. I think the situation's complicated. Sometimes Israel's wrong. Sometimes they do have too much influence over our foreign policy. Sometimes we do get into these ridiculous wars at the behest of Israel, and I criticize that. However, other times, like when we want to move the embassy to Jerusalem and Palestine threatens to kill a bunch of people, or we see the Obama administration and sort of the progressives that are constantly championing how evil Israel is, and they're attacking Jewish people in New York as a result of kind of this mentality. And we see Ilhan Omar and people like that are constantly going after Israel. I think that they're wrong a lot of times on that. So it's a complicated situation. Did Israel lock down? Of course. But the United States was going to lock down as well. I don't think that Israel was responsible, for example, for Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci seems to be more in line with the left, the Obama-type people that despise Israel and have done things like armed Iran by giving them pallets filled with cash. So I don't think the story's so simple as Israel's the great Satan, they're evil about everything. Even COVID we blame on Israel. I do not believe that. Why should we care about Jewish people, even if especially if they aren't in the U.S. land? Why should we care about anyone then? What did I say that talked about caring? I think that we should have compassion as individuals. I don't think that our government should be sending aid to other countries and things like that. I just got done saying that I think that it's a mistake that our foreign policy is oftentimes pushed at the behest of Israel that gets us in these disastrous wars. But we certainly should care about Jewish people in the United States that in places like New York are not only experiencing almost unprecedented violence against them by people like the members of the Nation of Islam, but they're also receiving state violence and state hypocrisy that they're being targeted specifically for COVID lockdown orders that other people like Black Lives Matter are allowed to avoid. It seems that you have a problem with Jewish people, O'Reilly. Not cool. Anyways, moving on. Perhaps you should vote Democrat then. They seem to have a problem with the Jews as well. So, Bobulinski decides that he's going to come forward and kind of blow the lid off all this. I only defend you. Ugh. You anti-Semites are fantastic. Yes, that's right. I'm sure. Hey, everyone that watches me routinely, aren't you sick and tired of how the only thing I talk about is defending Jews? I mean, I just did a whole segment talking about rural Pennsylvania and about how I stick up for them and think that it's absurd the way that they've been attacked. And business owners, regardless of their religious faith, skin color, gender, sexual preference, and all that stuff. But all I do is defend the Jews. That's all I do, says Mr. Anti-Semite here. Do I know how much anti-Asian crimes rose under the pro-Jew presidency? And how are those two things conflated? So what? Trump. So if I say I'm against Cuomo attacking Jewish people in New York or de Blasio attacking Jewish people in New York, well, now somehow I'm responsible for a rise in anti-Asian hate crimes? What are you smoking? Man, you anti-Semites are the best, man. You have no rational logic whatsoever. You're just disgusting little worm people. What are you, a Republican or Democrat? I'm telling you, vote Democrat. That's the party of anti-Semitism. You'll fit right in with them. Go hold de Blasio's hand and talk about how much you hate the Jews and you need to go into the Jewish schools and synagogues because of COVID. You're a disgusting piece of garbage. I'm not xenophobic. Unfamiliar with the term. I think that means anti-Asian. Is that? Oh, anti-Chinese. Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, you're right. So just so you get this, everyone, if you have a problem with China, if you think they've behaved in bad behavior regarding COVID, regarding unfair trade practices, regarding like the internment of Muslims in the Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps and things like that. If you have a problem with that stuff, then you're someone who's a Jew lover. Get it? You see how those two things make sense? They conflate. They control everything. Yep, makes sense. That's why they're out there promoting Black Lives Matter, right? That's all these corporations. That's why, for example, they control everything. The Jews control everything. Like, I don't know, let's take something random. The NBA. That's why the Jews that control the NBA have convinced the NBA not to criticize China, that's one of the biggest partners with the NBA, with their internment of Muslims in China, millions of Uyghurs Muslims interned. That's why, Nike that has sweatshops in places like China, that has to do with the Jews as well. Right? You see how that's making sense? One second. So I don't mind robust debate. Totally fine with it. Perfectly fine. What I won't allow is rabid racism. So we'll get rid of that person. All right, moving on. Back to Bobulinski. Again, the last thing I'll say about that person is it's ironic to me how much the anti-Semites have in common, like the Jew haters, how much they have in common with the people on the other side of the ledger that probably are Jew haters as well. Like the Ilhan Omar and that person have so much in common. It's amazing to me. People want to put you in this box. Either you defend Israel no matter what, or Israel's the great Satan and they're evil no matter what. Sorry, I don't fit into that box. So anyways, moving on to Bobulinski. So yeah, that was why he came forward, because he felt that he was personally maligned and attacked. So there are several things to ask regarding kind of the cover-up of this story with the media, with the Democrats, etc., that I think are worth asking. The first is, are we still going with the line? Are we still going with the line that these emails are fake? Is that still the argument? Is New York Post still locked out of Twitter? Is that still happening? Why? We have a whistleblower that came forward whose names were attached to the emails, who brought his own devices showing that those emails are actual real emails. How is the media still pretending this didn't happen? What's the story? So I want to say this. One of the things I said early, and I think that it's important because I knew we would get to this phase. I called this, right? The fact that the initial reaction from people on the left and people in the media was to say, no, these emails can't be real. They can't be real. The fact that that was their stance was an admission that if they were real, it was damning. Do you understand that? And I gave this example. I don't know if you remember me saying this. Let's say I was running for office, like Joe Biden, which I have. I've ran for office. And let's say that a cache of emails came out. And they said, we have email proof. Rob emailing people that he's gay. My response would have been this: no, you don't. That's fake. And so, even if it was true, I don't care. That would have been Joe Biden's team's take. It would have been, yeah, these emails aren't real, and so what? There's nothing in them. It's not a big deal. Why didn't they say that? Why did no one say it's not a big deal? Everyone said they have to be fake. They have to be fake. Because they knew if they were real, that it would be damning. And the same thing, by the way, happened with the Russia hoax. So I was on blogs and things like that where I was telling people, I've showed it to you before, on October 23rd, 2017, I said that if unverified opposition research was used to spy on a president of the United States' campaign by the FBI, it was the biggest political scandal in the history of this country. Still is. It's gotten so much worse by that since then. But that's still the biggest political scandal. I was absolutely right about this. And the response that was given to me by people on the left universally was, that's not true, Rob. There's no way that there is no proof whatsoever that the FBI used unverified opposition research to spy on a presidential campaign. No proof. There is no way that the FBI wouldn't verify something before using it to spy. It would never happen. Only it did happen. Then the same people that told me, oh, it would never happen, they said, well, of course it happened. It's no big deal. That's the exact same situation here. The emails are fake. The emails are fake. Oh, fake news. Russian disinformation. This is all fake. It's fake. Oh, now we've proven it's real? Of course it's real. It's no big deal. They know it's a big deal. Now they'll lie. Again, I talked about this yesterday in the show. They don't care. They don't have any standard. They think Orange Man bad. They think that Obama is a saint. That progressivism and their globalism, they think that it is the morally superior system. They think that they're smarter than you. So they are, by any means necessary. They could lie, they could cheat, fraud, they could be corrupt. It doesn't matter. To them, it's all okay. So they will look you in the face and just blatantly lie to you. Oh, this isn't a big deal. It's not a big deal at all. So look at the difference between Bobulinski and how he's being treated versus someone like Vindman. Both served the country. Both were in the military. Both received higher positions in the military. Vindman comes out with an axe to grind, has all sorts of shady connections to the alleged whistleblower. Comes out totally partisan and says a bunch of crap that basically means nothing. In a partisan attempt to impeach the president because he's upset that the president went against Vindman's established foreign policy. He was revered as a hero. He received threats, they said. Oh my God, Vindman's a hero. Can you believe the way he's being attacked? Says all of the media. Now we have Bobulinski that had to hire a Navy SEAL team to protect his family, who's been maligned, smeared, accused of being a Russian agent by the same people that praised Vindman. Did Bobulinski get offered a job to be a chief military advisor in a foreign adversary's military? Nope. Vindman did. Didn't he? It couldn't be more. If Bobulinski would have came out with his past and him being a decorated military officer, if he would have came out against Donald Trump and had emails where he was emailing Don Jr., I guarantee it would be the biggest story in the country right now. But it's critical of Joe Biden, so we have to bury the story. We have to bury the man. It is beyond doubt at this point, that these emails are real. Again, the Biden family never said they weren't real. The media still has yet to ask Biden if these emails are real. That's unbelievable. Now, Bobulinski admits he only has like a 10% view of what was going on. And the view he saw, just from his connections to Joe, Jim, and Hunter Biden, is devastating. It proves, in his words, that Joe Biden is compromised by the Chinese, our biggest adversary. Not Russia. Russia doesn't have near the economy China has, doesn't have near the military China has, doesn't have near the amount of influence in the United States that China has, isn't engaged in as near as much of duplicitous trade practices or theft of intellectual property that China is. Doesn't have their hooks in all of our major institutions. Russia doesn't, like China does. And Joe Biden's compromised by them. Now remember, we were told for 4 years, any connection Trump had to Russia must be investigated. My God, he could be compromised. For example, let me just give you one example. The idea that Trump possibly got peed on by hookers in a bed was a big deal. It was a huge deal. We needed to know that. Why? Because Russians use something called kompromat, which is they get videos of you in salacious behavior and then threaten to release those videos if you don't vote in a way that they want. Hunter Biden, anyone? Smoking crack? Getting foot jobs? Who knows what else? All of a sudden, the media is not concerned. Oh, we don't care about any of that. Now, again, I don't care that Hunter Biden had sex with hookers and smoked crack. I don't care. I care that his dad allowed Hunter Biden to raise money off of access to the vice presidential candidate, or vice president. I care that Joe Biden used a quid pro quo of $1 billion to fire a prosecutor looking into his son's company. I care that Joe Biden has lied about all of that. That's what I care about. But the left cared about sex acts that Trump possibly made because that would be used to blackmail him. So why wouldn't they be concerned about Joe Biden's family engaged in what we now know were actual sex acts, unlike the fake ones that they accused Trump of? Remember, the entire tax story of Trump was they wanted to find out if he had connections to Russia. Did he have business ties in Russia? Oh my God. Well, then that proves that he can't be trusted. Yet we now see definitive proof that our even bigger adversary, China, the Bidens were intimately involved in business relationships with. Again, they constantly look at Trump and say, well, hypothetically, he could do X and that would be devastating. While at the same time, the Democrats are literally doing X. Oh, remember, just give you a random example. Remember the whole story with Cambridge Analytical? Oh, hypothetically, it could have been that the Republicans and Trump used this company that used people's Facebook data to target them with ads. That's devastating. Meanwhile, they were bragging in 2013. Obama contacted Facebook CEOs and got access to the people's personal data that they were then able to target ads for, and it was brilliant. It was genius. So when they do something perfectly fine, shrewd moves politically, very, very smart. But when hypothetically the Republicans do the same thing, oh my God, that would be devastating. But maybe, we'll see. I'm doing this debate Friday. It'll be fun. Maybe the take is this. Oh, well, China's not the real threat. It's Russia. That's garbage, but fair enough. I'm old enough to remember when Christopher Steele put in a dossier that Carter Page was promised a 20% stake in the Russian oil company Rosneft in order to help with the election. And the idea that someone in Trump's campaign would be connected to ownership of this Russian-owned oil firm was devastating. Oh my God. The accusation was so significant that we needed nonstop investigations and spying and wiretaps and special counsel. Remember that? No, it turned out it was all garbage. Meanwhile, Tony Bobulinski actually provides evidence that CEFC, the Chinese company that the Bidens, including Joe Biden, were working with, were involved in a deal and actually purchased 14% of Rosneft. Down to the exact Russian company that they accused Trump of having business relationships with that would be devastating. The exact same company. That's what the Bidens have. And we have proof. Bobulinski provides the proof, the emails. So not only are they involved with China, they're involved with Russia. Now let's go through exactly what was accused by Bobulinski, and I'll tell you why it's a big deal. And I'll tell you what it's not, though, right? So his claim is that he is someone who's kind of a legitimate businessman, and he was working with other legitimate businessmen that were connected to the Biden family. But he says that the Bidens themselves, the only business acumen they have is that their name is Biden. And that even when they talk to him, they talk about the Biden legacy, the Biden family, the Biden name. And that's the only thing they have to offer. In other words, you could sell influence to foreign countries and foreign businesses because Joe Biden was the vice president. That's all they have. That's how they were making millions upon billions of dollars, because they were selling access to Joe Biden. And the fact that so many people are willing to pay that money shows that they knew that that access would be fruitful for them in the future. For example, China's getting their money's worth right now, right? Joe Biden refuses to say China's our biggest adversary. He says they're a competitor. Kamala Harris in the vice presidential debate, she couldn't even say one bad word about China. Instead, she criticized Trump from issuing tariffs to them. How great is that? For the low cost of the millions of dollars they sent Hunter Biden, China bought themselves the leader of the major party in the United States. A bargain, if you ask me. The Bidens approached Hunter and Jim Biden. Jim is, by the way, if you don't know, Joe's brother. Approached Bobulinski, and they wanted him to basically be the CEO of their shell company that would be used to basically funnel this money. Well, Bobulinski didn't think it was corrupt or anything like that. Now, the first thing to know is when they started to engage in these deals, Bobulinski admits this was 2015, 2016. This was before Bobulinski was involved, but this was when Joe was still vice president of the United States. By the time he was approached, Joe was no longer vice president of the United States. They approached him about this company. He said it sounded interesting. They then personally introduced him to Joe Biden. He had a good conversation with Joe Biden. He met with Joe Biden twice. And then he was involved in these deals with the Bidens. They admitted that Joe Biden was involved in this. Hunter and Jim Biden told Bobulinski that. And that's why he was to personally meet Joe Biden, because it was the Biden legacy, the Biden family name. He says at one point he told Jim Biden, aren't you worried that this would end Joe Biden's future political aspirations? Because he's literally trading his name for lucrative business deals with the communist government of China. And Jim Biden looked at him and laughed and said, plausible deniability. In other words, we'll just deny it. We'll say it never happened. Which is exactly what they're doing. Now, what this relationship was with China specifically, it was, in defense to Joe Biden, it was after Joe Biden's tenure as vice president. But what it was him actively engaged in what he knew to be corrupt business practices in China with firms that had connections and were owned by the communist government of China. And that they were trying to do this on the down low, basically, because they didn't want the American people or the public to see that the Biden was trading in their family name to help the United States' biggest adversary. Now, the audio that was released yesterday that wasn't from Bobulinski shows Hunter Biden talking on a phone, admitting that he was asked to represent these this Chinese government spy, their spy master, basically. And that the Southern District of New York and the FBI were contacting him about possible criminal investigations. I agree, Epic. You can get away with a lot when the media's on your side. I think if Trump wins, the media will crucify Biden to try to recover their credibility. We'll see. But I'll get to, again, I can't stress enough. It's not just the Bidens. It's the media itself. It's the FBI. It's the Obama administration. It's the Democratic Party. All of them know about this corruption and are actively trying to bury it. They even impeached Trump for trying to look into it. So Bobulinski goes on to say that basically then he continued to push for positions that would make this a legal, credible business. So he wanted certain stopgaps in measure to make sure that there was nothing shady going on, and that, quote, the chairman, my chairman, said the documents that we see from Hunter Biden, which is one of the things he referred to his father as, his chairman, vehemently was against installing those stay gap measures. Ultimately, the money personally from China went to the Bidens in interest-free loans of $5 billion. That's what's being alleged. This company was involved in all sorts of shadiness, including with Rosneft, as I talked about earlier. Now, again, the argument was we had to look at Trump's tax returns because he may have had a business arrangement with people in Russia. And that would have been devastating, showed that he was compromised. Now we have the Communist government of China. We have proof that they were engaged in a business relationship with Biden. And no response. Now, the devil's advocate view, people say, well, is there proof that Joe Biden was personally connected? One, Bobulinski says yes. He says from his whistleblowing that yes, he personally talked to Joe Biden, that Joe Biden was involved. He says that the big guy that was supposed to get 10% was Joe Biden. He says that Hunter Biden, when he discusses my chairman, is talking about his dad. He also released portions of a call that he had with Hunter Biden's lawyer, I believe Hunter Biden's lawyer, where he said, look, I'm going public with this. And the lawyer said, if you go public, it will bury us all. And in addition, it seems beyond belief that Joe Biden would be totally unaware when we see pictures of Joe Biden pictured with businessmen from Kazakhstan that Hunter Biden was involved in. It just is beyond the pale that Joe Biden wouldn't have known that his family was cashing in his name, particularly when he met with Bobulinski. And like Bobulinski says, you can go back to the Milken conference where he met Joe Biden. You could check the receipts. You could check the photos. He sat there right there with them. So yes, Joe Biden was involved. And second, even if you can't 100% prove that from the information we have, any journalist worth their salt, any investigators worth their salt would say, wow, there's enough smoke here. We need to investigate. This is incredible. At the very least, even if we could somehow say Joe Biden, we don't have definitive proof that he was involved. We see that his family was trading in on his name with our biggest political adversaries. That enough is a scandal. Even if Joe Biden personally didn't know. Wouldn't the media be upset about this? All the people that talked about foreign interference, wouldn't they be furious that family members of a vice president were using his position in order to get wealthy in attempts to influencing foreign policy? Wouldn't this at least prove that Hunter Biden failed to register as a foreign lobbyist? The same thing Paul Manafort sits in jail for right now? Why isn't the media concerned with it? They were awfully concerned about Manafort, but they're not concerned about Hunter and Jim Biden. Let's go to the tweets. If you're not following Molly Hemingway, she's fantastic. You should be following her on Twitter. So we'll just go through them fast. It says, Tony Bobulinski, the Biden family associate who has become a whistleblower, is on Tucker right now going through his firsthand knowledge about the Biden family operations, including Joe Biden's participation, contrary to what Joe Biden has claimed. Bobulinski's talking about meeting Joe Biden at the Milken conference in 2017 to discuss Bobulinski's CEO role at Sinohawk, the Biden family firm. Biden was a keynote speaker, and Bobulinski has provided text about arranging that meeting with the Biden and discussing it. Quote, when he states that, that's a blatant line. Bobulinski on Biden saying he wasn't involved in the Biden family business. Says he almost stood up at the debate and shouted Biden was lying when he claimed as much. Bobulinski notes how the operation planned to hold a percentage for Joe Biden, but not in his name, held by a close family member. He says he is aghast that the media say a lack of official paperwork is the end of the story. Thinks more questions should be asked. And this is a great point. It's worth discussing here a little on its own. Notice that Joe Biden never denied any of these emails. He didn't say they were fake or anything like that. He just said, I released my tax returns and none of this money was on there. Well, again, one, that's irrelevant if his family was getting wealthy off his name. And second, yeah, of course you're not going to put corrupt earnings you got on your tax returns. The entire email exchange is showing them doing everything they can to avoid disclosing these monies were paid. So imagine this. emails of me are released that say that I'm smuggling drugs and moneying money and then laundering that money through a Swiss bank account, right? And there are emails, my name attached to them, that is saying all of that. And my response to that is, here's my tax returns, none of that money shows up. Well, yeah, the entire accusation is I'm illegally laundering money. It's the same thing with the Bidens here. How is showing us your tax? Yes, no one thought that you wrote down that you received a bunch of money from the communist government of China. We all knew that. You didn't tell the IRS that. We know that. That is not a defense. So Bobulinski's right. It's like, why wouldn't the media look more into this? He says that Joe Biden's brother said all they needed to protect his brother from scrutiny when he ran for president was, quote, plausible deniability, which I already talked about. Bobulinski says he had another conversation with Joe Biden the day after the previous meeting where he asked him to keep an eye on his son and brother. He's a Navy veteran who held a security clearance and says he's upset that Biden suggested he was part of a Russian disinformation scheme. Quote, I feel I have a patriotic duty to this country and to every American citizen, Bobulinski says of coming forward about Biden. He says he had to go on the record because of Biden's claims of Russian disinformation. Going through his family's lengthy military service, he says when he saw Adam Schiff claiming that the emails were Russian disinformation, he told the Biden camp to get that retracted or he'd go on record. He says the Biden camp suggested that they couldn't get it retracted, a claim Bobulinski felt was ridiculous. So he said at that point he was happy to go to the American people. Quote, people were accusing my family of treason after I served this country and defended this country. Absolutely, and he did the right thing. Then he says he was shocked at the media reaction or lack thereof. Says it would be one thing if it was just his word against the Biden family. That would be one thing. But he's provided so many reams of documents, text, messages, and facts about the meetings, who participated, etc. Quote, they're dismissing this as Russian disinformation. This country's heard enough about Russia. 3 years. Russia, Russia, Russia. It's absurd. Says he was strongly pressured not to go public by Biden associates. Provides audio tape of Biden reps saying if this goes public, it will bury all of them. Bobulinski talks about the Biden family businesses in Oman, Luxembourg, Romania, and how they use the family name to get business from foreign agents, hoping to garner favor with Biden. That's Joe Biden. That in terms of business acumen, Hunter and Jim's only qualification was the family name. He notes that Hunter himself said he had some sort of deal in Kazakhstan as well, that Hunter had no reason to have a deal other than his father's political power. Tucker says reporters claim that the chairman in emails is a reference to Chinese official, not Biden. So when Hunter says, my chairman says we should do something, that means Chairman Yi. But Rob Walker says specifically that in at least one case it refers to Joe Biden, and that's on email. Bobulinski notes that even though he was CEO of firm, Chinese didn't care about him, but about the Biden family participation. That the Chinese partners wrote that a generous loan to a firm associated with the Biden family is really a loan to the Biden family. Quote, I think Joe Biden and the Biden family are compromised, he says. Says in security training, you understand what being compromised means. As a citizen taxpayer, I'm very concerned. Let's pause here for a second. So in the last testimony of James Comey, one of the things that the Democrats asked him repeatedly, because the tax returns of Trump had just came out. By the way, that Twitter and Facebook, even though those were legally obtained tax returns, had no problem pushing. Even though they were legally obtained, the Democrats and the media had no problem discussing and smearing Trump with, proving that they're hypocrites. This information, on the other hand, was not illegally obtained, and yet they're censoring it. But they kept insinuating to James Comey. They said, oh, Donald Trump owes money. He has a loan and he owes money to people. If he owed money to the Russians, would that be something that would worry you? Former Director Comey, and Comey's like, oh, yes, that's devastating. The American people need to know this because that could prove that he's compromised by Russia. Well, here we have proof that the Biden family owes millions of dollars to the Chinese. Yet the same Democratic senators that were grilling Comey on hypothetically if Trump owed Russians money don't have a word to say. And we're not talking about random Chinese people. We're talking about the communist government of China that was giving the Biden family interest-free loans to the tune of $5 million. All of a sudden, they don't care. Where's James Comey? Wasn't he one of the 50 intel officials that signed something saying this is Russian disinformation? We actually have proof and documents that the Biden family got this money. We have proof that Hunter Biden received, $2.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife. Where are they? All of a sudden, their concern is gone? Isn't that odd how that happens? Quote, there should be no scenario that this isn't investigated, Bobulinski says, noting that he only saw a small portion of the Biden family business dealings with foreign agents. Quote, I have every email, every text, every WhatsApp that was exchanged, and I've provided them to the authorities. Director at CEFC told Bobulinski that the $10 million funding would come in the form of a $5 million loan to the Biden family and a $5 million contribution to Sinohawk. Wasn't coming in, and Bobulinski got worried when it leaked that Rosneft, again, that's the Russian gas firm, stake might be sold to CEFC. That was the director's, then that director's U.S. visa was denied. Rosneft is the sanctioned Russian energy concern. Bobulinski notes that Patrick Ho detained by the U.S. government for leaving shoeboxes of cash to African leaders. CEFC was the capitalistic side of the Chinese government, he says, and starting to go downhill. So, for example, we know from emails released yesterday that there was at least one FISA warrant that was issued against this gentleman, Patrick Ho, who's a business associate of the Bidens. Now, a FISA warrant can only be issued if you're credibly accusing the target of being a spy for a foreign country. So Patrick Ho, the business partner of the Bidens, was accused of being a Chinese spy by our FBI that got a FISA application after him. Now, if Donald Trump was in and his family was in a business arrangement with a Russian spy or a Chinese spy, you can guarantee that would be the biggest story in the nation right now. But because it's the Bidens, no big deal. It's just Russian disinformation that the FBI got a FISA warrant against this guy and detained him. Going on, he says he asked Hunter if he went around Sinohawk to get the money from CEFC, and Hunter said he hadn't, but that he was acting as the personal attorney to Chairman Yi. But Bobulinski said it made him angry and frustrated, realizing he'd been circumvented and that there was that Russian connection of the Rosneft rule, and that was very disconcerting for any American to be involved in. Again, says he's speaking out because of his military background, that he has a former SEAL team protecting his family. Of course I'm worried, he says, about his safety now that he's speaking out. The man that the Biden family approached to run their business in China, who met with Joe Biden twice as part of that role, who has been attacked as an agent of Russia by Biden surrogates, just gave one hell of a riveting interview on Tucker. And then lastly, CNN searcher Bobulinski did not match any documents. This is devastating. All that it takes to stop this country and say that it's a scandal of epic proportions and demand FBI investigations and demand impeachment and have 24/7 coverage of how evil Trump is for someone to allege Trump did something. That's it. That's all it takes. Stormy Daniels alleges something. We don't need proof, just an allegation, a whistleblower. That's it. Yet they're uninterested in Tony Bobulinski, a whistleblower who served this country with distinction, that doesn't seem to have a partisan axe to grind. He's not writing a book, didn't want to come forward. They don't care what he has to say. Except unlike those people that just made allegations about Trump, he actually has all of the documentation to prove his story and has released it to the authorities. It's been released to the American people. He's been willing to go on the record about it. And yet, despite the fact that this makes him a whistleblower that's been the most transparent whistleblower, who's actually saved all of the evidence of the allegations that he's making, he's totally ignored. Didn't we just hear about how important it is to protect whistleblowers? And yet now the media is calling him, and the Biden family is calling him, a Russian spy. Now all of a sudden they're not concerned with protecting whistleblowers. Now all of a sudden they're not concerned about foreign interference and corruption with foreign entities. They don't care about that at all. Public citizen says, Bobulinski, why should I care? You don't care. You shouldn't care, public citizen. We get it. You who said yesterday as a moderate that you'll become more radical if Trump wins re-election. I understand you shouldn't care because you don't care if there's obvious corruption on your side of the ledger. So you shouldn't care. You should care that other people care. You should care that it points out that you're a hypocrite. You should care that everything they accused Trump of for 4 years is actually being done by the Democrats in the Biden camp. But you don't. I get it. I totally understand that. Makes sense perfectly. It fits right in with you and the rest of the Democrats. Totally get it. I mean, we had to impeach Trump over investigating the possible corruption of the Biden camp, but the actual corruption of the Biden camp is A-okay. Why should we care about that? Why should we care? Right. Fair point. Makes sense. We had 4 years of special counsel investigation, FBI investigations into Trump, accusing him, based on Russian disinformation, of all of the things that we now know were false about collusion, that we now actually know the Biden camp is doing with the Chinese government. But you're right, you shouldn't care. You shouldn't care that the media is working with the Biden camp, which is working with the FBI, to bury this story. You shouldn't care about that. You're right. There's nothing to care about there. We should just trust our propagandist overlords. Whatever they say goes, right? Right. You're right. I'm saying you shouldn't care because you're beyond help. You are a partisan hack who has threatened that you will get more radical if you don't get your way because you live in your mommy's basement and you're upset and will throw a big temper tantrum if you don't get your way. You're a hypocrite. You cared when it came to Trump and possible corruption with him, but you don't care when it comes to Biden. I get it. And the sad truth is there are millions of people like you. You don't care. Just like you will gnash your teeth and compare. Me too. We have to take all sexual assault accusations seriously until it's against Joe Biden. And then why should I care? Who cares if Joe Biden molested women? I don't care. Why would I care about that? Oh, but Trump said grab him by the P word. That I care about. All of a sudden I care about that. Yeah, you're right about that, Ken. Absolutely. But as always, thank you so much for being here, public citizen. So I hope you could all see that in the chat. Our biggest foreign adversary, China, there are credible accusations that they totally have who may very well be the president of the United States in their pocket. And his supporter says, why should I care? Why do I care about that? Who cares if our president's compromised by our biggest enemy? I guess go back. I'm not going to redo the entire show for you, so I guess just watch this when it's done. You should care because it shows that Joe Biden lied, first and foremost, when he said that he didn't have business dealing or didn't talk about his son's business dealings, that they were involved in all of the people that we're told were adversarial, Russia, China, the leadership of Burisma, they were getting money off them. That if Joe Biden lied about not being involved in or not being aware of these business dealings, then there's a good chance that we should question his quid pro quo where he forced a prosecutor that was looking into his son's company to be fired. That everything that Trump was accused of being compromised by a foreign regime is actually true of the Biden administration. That it's not just hearsay or, disinformation from Russian spies in the form of a Steele dossier. We actually have a decorated Navy vet who has come forward with all of the receipts showing this corruption, showing that Joe Biden lied and that they were connected to business arrangements with the Communist government of China that then was involved in the same company in China was involved with buying Rosneft, the very oil company in Russia that was so troubling that Trump possibly had connections to. You should care because China is going to overtake the United States as the world leader, and China is everything that progressives should hate. For example, they're currently interring over 1 million Uyghur Muslims. But suddenly the left doesn't care about that. They're brutally and hostilely cracking down on people that are protesting the government in places like Hong Kong that all of a sudden the left doesn't care about. They're infiltrating U.S. academia and have been proven so multiple times. They actually sent spies to be the driver for Dianne Feinstein and was a spy for over 10 years that she was unaware of. They're lobbying in illegal ways for all sorts of leaders, Republican and Democrat, in the United States Congress. And now we know that the man that is the head of the Democratic Party, as everyone claimed, Joe Biden himself said, I'm in charge of the Democratic Party, is now compromised by the Chinese government. That's why you should care. The fact that you're not following the story is unbelievable. You should also care that you're not following the story and that the media has covered this up. Because this is propaganda. And public citizen, assumably, at some point you would like to get actual factual information from our media. But the fact that you don't care about this or you're unaware proves that the media can they're just propaganda agents for whatever side they think should be in power. So the next time we go to some foreign war like Iraq, that we have no business being in, and the media pushes, yes, we need to go to this war, you don't get to complain. Wait a minute, where's the proof of this? You were silent when it was proven that the media were just propagandists because it benefited your side. So you were okay with it. That's right. I heard that, the one who tubes. Public citizen, you got to be careful because if Trump wins, he'll have to get more radical. Yeah, scary stuff. Maybe he's practicing in Philadelphia last night, right? That's the reasons you should care. You don't find it troubling that Donald Trump was impeached for looking at the corruption of Joe Biden? Again, so one of the things that someone said earlier, that they think that eventually the media will turn on Biden to try to get their credibility back. That's what will happen in some sense. They'll try to scapegoat Biden. They'll say, well, Biden didn't really do anything wrong, but okay, he had a troublesome family and, so maybe he needs to step down. President Harris, ladies and gentlemen. That's what they'll try. But this story isn't just Biden and his corruption. It certainly is. It's certainly that. Why isn't the FBI investigating? Why have they set on this? So it's about their corruption. What about the State Department in the Ukraine? All the people that testified against Trump, knowing that Biden was involved in this corruption. They're complicit in it. What about the Obama administration that gave Joe Biden the go-ahead to issue that quid pro quo? You don't think the Obama administration didn't know about Hunter Biden getting all these deals in Oman, Luxembourg, Kazakhstan, China, Burisma? The Obama administration didn't know about that? They're involved. What about the Democratic Party? They knew about this. How do I know they knew? Because I knew. And yet they impeached Trump for trying to look into this corruption. They're complicit. What about the media that has buried this story and championed that impeachment effort? They're complicit. And public citizen, you're not someone who's not well informed. You're not a dumb person. Why wouldn't this trouble you? Why wouldn't the fact that we have the intel community working hand in hand with the major party, working hand in hand with the media, working hand in hand with the tech company to alter reality and censor stories that are critical of them? Why wouldn't that concern you? Well, let's root it up. And here we go. And you prove your partisanship again. Well, let's root it out. I'm just a citizen. I don't have time to follow every single BS GOP story. Oh, right, because that's what it is. A BS. Tony Bobulinski. I mean, yep. It must just be a garbage BS GOP story. Well, it's because of you that all of this corruption's allowed to happen. Because of people like you. Because you just say, I only believe what my masters in CNN tell me. If the Democrats say that there's a scandal about Trump, oh, I believe it. Even when time after time after time it's proven to be false. But when we have actual documentary evidence proving that Joe Biden lied, I mean, BS scandal. Did you not hear Joe Biden say in his own words in 2017 that he issued a quid pro quo with $1 billion U.S. tax dollars to fire a prosecutor that was looking into his son's company? You didn't hear him say that? That was a BS GOP story? You misspoke. You're not going to get more radical. You're going to get more active. Trump's corruption is well established and it's un-American and intolerable. Well, I'm glad that you're now backing away from your claim that you're going to get more radical. But in a world where we're talking in that exact video, we are talking about radicals burning down cities, and you say you're going to have to get more radical. It's funny now that after you've been made fun of that you're like, oh, I misspoke. Sure. Mm-hmm. And we keep hearing about Trump's corruption. I'll tell you what, show me 1/10 of any story like we're hearing right now about Biden that happened with Trump. Do we have emails of Trump's team talking about how they were engaged in businesses, underhanded business with the communist Chinese government? Do we have that? Has Trump issued a quid pro quo to fire a prosecutor that was looking into his son's business? Do we have that? Well, I don't remember that. I don't remember. What Trump's corruption's things like this. People stayed at Trump's hotel on government dimes. Okay. That's different than being compromised by the Chinese government, accepting money from the communist Chinese government. That's far different. But let's say you're right. Let's say that you're right, that Trump is corrupt and it's intolerable. How are you supporting the other side then? Why are you ignoring their corruption? Well, Trump's corrupt because I can't really articulate it. Something about people staying at hotels. And you think Trump's corrupt because all you do is listen to CNN. You just admitted you're not listening to stories from the other side. You don't have time to listen to these BS GOP conspiracy theories. You know, conspiracy theories where we actually have Joe Biden on tape talking about it. We actually have Hunter Biden on tape. We actually have the emails from them proving it. We don't have anything like that connected to the Trump team. Name me the Trump scandal. Let's go. Russia collusion. I know more about that scandal than you do. Go ahead. Let's go. Name me some Trump scandals. Waiting. His daughter sold clothes and traded on the Trump name to be able to sell things. Oh my goodness, no. If only she would have just engaged in shady, underhanded deals while getting foot jobs from the communist government of China, then it wouldn't have been corrupt. Then it would have been okay. But her having a clothing line, that's very troubling, right? Let's hear some of these great Trump scandals. 2 scoops, I did forget that. Trump does enjoy 2 scoops of ice cream. Oh, shit. I forgot. He overfed those koi fish. Remember that one time he did that? Oh, that was a brutal scandal. You remember that? Yeah, exactly, Lee Nelson. Him overfeeding those 2 scoops of ice cream. Listen, I'm sorry, I forgot. A public citizen who's going to be forced to get more radical. I mean, more active from his mom's basement if Trump wins. He has reminded us of these brutal Trump scandals. I mean, I did forget Trump had 2 scoops of ice cream. That is a really... I know so much about Trump scandals. I'll go to Wikipedia and type in Trump controversy. Click. There we go. Oh, man. That's, even for you, public citizen, that's special. That's fantastic. Good stuff. Woo! Good stuff. Yeah, I see. Let's go here real quick. Let's see some of the stuff that's said. This is a great link. Wikipedia, we all know. The gold standard in journalism, Wikipedia. Let's see some of the things they say here. Here we have, as part of the Trump administration controversies. Let's see here. Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot. Yeah, that was a bunch of people that said that they hated Trump, that threatened to kidnap him, that were radicalized by the FBI. There was one particular that I thought was worth. The Buffalo police shoving incident. Yep, that had to do with Donald Trump. The impeachment of Donald Trump. Yep, that's what we've been talking about. Criticism of the government's response to a hurricane. Ooh, yeah. Him appointing judges. Yep. Oh, yeah, that was a controversy. I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. Yep, big Trump scandal there. Wow, this stuff's great. Whoo. The immigration policy. Yep, that immigration, that was a scandal. Oh, man, this link is this is on fire, man. Whew. Oh, yeah, this is my favorite right here. Listen, I'm sorry. Everyone, I just want to apologize. I now understand the scandals that Trump was involved in is of epic proportion. This link that Public Citizens provided is devastating. I'm about to show you a scandal I was unaware of from this list of controversies of Donald Trump. This is going to blow your mind. I'm sorry to have to report this. Maybe this will make you reconsider your vote. One of the scandals that we need to talk about of Donald Trump, you ready? That's provided on this great link, the Public Citizen, from the noted journalistic bastion of truth, Wikipedia. One of the things, are you ready for this? I don't think you're ready for a scandal of this portion. Watergate, the FBI engaged in a coup against Trump, Joe Biden compromised by the communist government of China and the media covering up for it, impeaching Trump over trying to investigate that corruption. That's nothing. Those look like pleasant actions compared to this scandal that's listed. Are you ready for this? Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the ultimate Trump scandal, according to Public Citizen, from his great link of Wikipedia of Trump controversies. Are you ready? Musicians who oppose Donald Trump's use of their music. You think that you live in a free country. You think that you could respect the leadership of the United States, and then you find out some musicians are mad at Trump? That's devastating. What's Neil Young think? What's Bruce Springsteen think? It's unbelievable. So thank you, Public Citizen, for bringing great facts like this to light. It's very important that we all know that some musicians are unhappy about the music Trump plays at his rallies. Unbelievable. And Public Citizen is exemplifying oftentimes what you see on the left. Donald Trump lies more than any human being in history. He's told over hundreds of thousands of lies. Really? Can you give me some examples? Yeah, he told people drinking bleach would help. No, actually he didn't. That's a lie. He never said that. Well, he said that no one respects women more than him. I agree. That's stupid. That's probably a lie. But it's like one of those lies like you catch a 20-inch fish and you say it's 28 inches. Sure, it's dumb. Whatever. And meanwhile, we have Joe Biden lying about basically being compromised by the Chinese government. Why should I care about that, says Public Citizen. I'm more concerned about the list of musicians that are upset of the music that Trump uses at his rallies. That's what's really aggravating to me. At the very least, understand this about the Bobulinski thing. There is more here, more evidence, both through witness testimony or whistleblower testimony that have actually came out with a name. Oh, here we go. So Warp-Master, this is another great point. This is a part of the story I should have brought. Putin said there was no corruption in the UK nor Russia with the Bidens. Oh, okay. That clears it up. So here's the Democrat position for those of you keeping score. Putin is the world's biggest enemy. Oh, he's evil, super terrible guy. He's lying, he's spying, he's trying to infiltrate our government, right? We can't trust this man. My God, he's a horrible, evil man. Oh, what's that? Putin says that Biden's cool? Putin said that Biden's cool and didn't do anything corrupt? End of story then. Putin always tells the truth. Oh, except he's the worst. And he's trying to attack our country. Oh, man, you people on the left, you are fantastic. Fantastic. So now we have to take Putin at his word. Just wondering, Warp-Master, if Putin comes out and says, by the way, Trump was not an asset of mine, Trump never did anything illegal with me, would you say, oh, well, there you go, end of story. Putin said that Trump didn't do anything illegal with Putin. I don't care if Trump said Putin's totally cool. What does that have anything to do with anything? What are the actions that Trump's taken against Putin? More significant than any president since Reagan. First and foremost, he increased domestic drilling and output of fossil fuels in the United States, which now makes us a net producer and people that are selling that overseas. This has directly harmed Putin more than anything. Trump's also sold weapons to Putin adversaries such as the Ukraine. He's also bombed Syria to my chagrin. He's also ended the START treaty. He's put sanctions on Russian diplomats. He's been a thorn in the side of Russia ever since he's been there. But in an attempt to have good relations with Putin, he said, yeah, I talked to Putin, I like what he had to say. And that's somehow devastating. As opposed to Joe Biden, who would talk a big tough game on places, but then he's secretly taking corrupt money from all of these places. War-Hyphen says, Trump has a Chinese bank account in 2017, paid in unknown source monies and withdrew money from that. Okay. And that's not proof of anything. I don't care if Joe Biden has a bank account in China. I don't care at all. What I care about is we now have proof in the form of documented evidence that shows that he was working with people involved in the Chinese Communist Party of China. That's kind of repeating myself. That's what I care about. And that he lied about it. And that he did so because he traded his name as a politician to do that. Donald Trump's business dealings before he was in office, I don't care about. Unless he was dealing with hostile powers in an attempt to sell access to his position as president of the United States. It is clear to me that Donald Trump has been more adversarial to China to the point where the Democrats call him xenophobic. I just had someone on the thread here earlier, an anti-Semite, that was furious at how xenophobic Trump was because he hates the Chinese so much. Cool reference there to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now, I saw the movie. I thought that it was marginally funny, but it left a lot on the table. And I don't think that it does what you think it's doing by trying to insult me by saying that I'm some character or Trump supporters or some characters from them. Shouting doesn't make things true. No, things being true makes them true. That's what I've been citing. Citing that someone reminds you of a minor character from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy also doesn't make things true. You're willing. You got some time? War Python Master, would you like to come on the show right now? I mean, you're confident that there's no evidence that Biden was involved in any of these things. I mean, we just saw Tony Bobulinski, who was in charge of the finances and connected. So your argument is that Bobulinski's lying. All the documents he provided showing that Hunter Biden and the Bidens received all this $5 million from the Chinese government's a lie. The documents that prove that Moscow's mayor's wife gave $2.5 million to Hunter Biden's a lie. The documents from Burisma proving that they gave money to Hunter Biden is a lie. You're saying all of those documents are lies. Bobulinski, who was involved in that situation, he's a liar, even though he has all of the information and data, the emails, the text to prove it's true. Those are all lies. That's what your claim is. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Lee Nelson, and this is what I've said over and over again. I'm less concerned. For example, let's say Mike Bloomberg would have won the Democratic nominee and then became president. I would not find it a very compelling story if someone told me, oh my God, did you know this? Multi-billionaire Mike Bloomberg actually had business deals in China before he was president. You know what I would say to that? And I don't like Bloomberg. I'd say, yeah, I would assume so. He's a multi-billionaire. I assume that they have business deals all around the world. I don't see how that's proof of corruption. I'm less concerned about billionaires that become politicians and where their money came from. I'm more concerned about people that weren't wealthy who became politicians and then got rich somehow when they were in office. That's what I find more concerning. You know, people like Joe Biden, people like Nancy Pelosi, people like Chuck Schumer. And then when you see credible evidence that they're involved in these shady deals, trading off their name and influence to places like the Communist government of China that's buying the Russian gas asset Rosneft. It's involved in Kakistan, Oman, Luxembourg, Romania, trading influence and trading their name. That's what I find concerning. I also find it concerning that so many people, like we could see on this thread, aren't concerned about that. They'll be concerned about Donald Trump eating 2 scoops of ice cream, but they're not concerned about that. Yeah, well, Biden lied about fracking. Absolutely true. Remember that if you live in one of these, if you like cheap gasoline or if you live in a state that the fossil fuel economy is important to your state's economy. Yeah, Matt. What's up, Matt? A good friend of mine in real life, Matt Schreck. He says, didn't they call it Russian disinformation? Then their defense is Putin said it wasn't true. That's exactly right. That put better than I put it, actually. If you look at these two things simultaneously, we have to send the Twitter and Facebook have to censor the New York Post story because it's Russian disinformation, and the media is not going to cover it because it's Russian disinformation. But at the same time, they're saying, oh, and it's debunked because Putin says so. I mean, it's just hilarious. You can't make this stuff up. Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to play clips during the debate, but yeah, he should have brought it up. I mean, like I said in my review of the debate, I thought Trump handedly won in the second debate, and he did a lot of good for himself, but there were some things he left on the table. Trump's first question, or first point he made to Biden should have been like, are you denying these emails are real? Are you saying Tony Bobulinski, who's in the audience right now, are you saying he's Russian disinformation? That he's lying? You didn't meet him? He wasn't involved in business deals with your son? And you? That's what your claim is? He should have put him on the spot right there about this. He should have mentioned that he fired a prosecutor in the Ukraine using $1 billion of your tax dollars. So, all right. I'm going to get my day going, so I'm going to head out here. Just a couple programming notes. Every day, every weekday, 8 a.m. will be my show. Please, if you like the show, please like and subscribe, and follow me on other platforms like D Live. I'm Normal America on D Live. If you're watching this on YouTube, D Live, Twitch, in the description of the video, there should be a link to all of my other channels. So please consider following me on channels that aren't YouTube, because eventually YouTube will censor me. It's just going to happen. Please consider that. And you could really help by sharing my videos with other people. Hopefully they also will find them entertaining. But yeah, I think that would really be able to help me out. Financial donations are always appreciated. Thank you, Janet. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jennifer, Lee, Dan, Jeff, and Katz, Matt. Thank all of you, everyone that's been here. Thank you to even the people on Twitch, the lefties that like Public Citizen and Warp-Master. Even if we disagree, thank you for being here. I do really appreciate it. If you know anyone who needs life insurance and you're in the Pennsylvania area or anywhere else, please give me a shout out. I'm getting to the point where if I don't start selling insurance, my wife's going to cuff me upside the head because I need to start making money. So financial donations, always appreciated to help the show out. If you need life insurance, please let me know. I don't do ads. I don't do sponsors or anything like that. So it's a way for me to make money with the show. So yeah, thanks so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. The show, like I said, will be 8 a.m. every Monday through Friday now. So you can tune into that. Friday at 6 p.m., I will be doing a debate on the Bidens, the things like this Bobulinski story that you just heard. So tune in for that at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. And then, of course, Monday, the day before the election at 8 a.m., normal time for my show, I will be starting a 24-hour show. If you're interested in calling in, I'll have call-in sections on that. I'm going to try to have guests. So it'll be something, 24 hours straight. We'll see how it goes. So looking forward to seeing all of you there. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm really humbled that any of you will listen. It really means a lot to me. I hope you enjoy the show, and can't wait to see you all tomorrow. As always, have a good one.